Won't you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes?
We've got, is it Johannan in Thiensville, Wisconsin, or Thiensville, Wisconsin?
Hi. Yeah, Thiensville.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, so I'm actually a theist, and I had a rather unusual argument. Someone suggested I call in and test this out on you, and I want to see what you think.
Okay.
So you would agree that we can, at some point, I mean, this is not going to fit into the normal kind of theism where people think there's like an immaterial soul, which is non-physical or anything like that. However, you would agree that we can develop artificial intelligence at some point in the future, right? Not too far off, that would.
I have no idea. I don't know. I don't think we know exactly what's required to have something that would qualify as...
Not at the moment. Not
Sure.
at the moment, but I'm saying, like, that's the kind of the traditional view among neuroscientists. That it's basically boils down to a kind of computation, right?
Sure. Yeah, I recognize that there's a lot of people working on this. This may be possible. I don't know that we can say when. I'm not even sure we can say
Not
if.
when, but like that, you know, it's plausible, let's say, 50 years from now, whenever, that someone will figure this out, right?
Sure.
Okay, so now, that being the case, you ever play the Sims game?
Yes. Well, I don't.
Okay.
I'm familiar with it.
Okay, so let's suppose that this is, that's something that we do all the time anyway. A lot of people have Sims games. And suppose that, say, 50 years from now, there's a future version of the Sims called Sims Universe. And in this simulation, because we have quantum computers by this point, everything is completely...
Because sure, as long as we're making stuff up.
Okay, so now the thing is that suppose we have these AIs inside this game, which is, it's something perfectly reasonable to do as well. These AIs would believe that they are actually real people living in the real world, right?
I don't know.
Because they would have self-aware.
But I'll go along with your
hypothesis. Would have the same, pixelation that ours would. They would look, for all intents and purposes, real, and so they would have no way to directly tell if they're in a simulation, right?
Possibly. I don't know. I mean, you can if you're going to construct this scenario and we use it as a hypothetical, sure, we'll go ahead and say that hypothetically speaking, it's possible that can I just skip right to the punch and say that we're living in a computer simulation?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you some more things on this. There's a guy named Nick Bostrom. You might have heard of him.
Yeah.
He had this idea, and he basically was able to. He actually had an equation to calculate the probability that we're in a simulation. And
yeah.
It's just kind of crazy because this leads to a really kind of crazy conclusion. The premise he's going in aren't that they're difficult, though, right? They're seemingly pretty reasonable, but the end result of it was that we're 99% likely to be in some kind of simulation, right?
Yes, I'm aware that that's what he thinks.
Okay, so now that being the case, you could have well, first of all, this would look a lot like a theist type of scenario, right? Where you have instead of a quote guy, would be an all-powerful programmer, right? And suppose that this programmer interacted with our world in such a way that, say there was a interaction between the simulant and the simulator, right?
Possibly.
If you didn't think that you were in a simulation, you thought you were in the real world, what would that look like?
Why, if I didn't think I was in a simulation and I thought I was in
some crazy,
then it would look like I was. It would be indistinguishable. I wouldn't be able to tell whether I was in a simulation, would I?
What if hypothetically the simulator decided to have fun and play a practical joke on his Sims, and he spawned something in the game, or that look totally freakish, right?
Sure.
Okay, so now the idea is that this could. Basically, it would look indistinguishable from what you would think of as religion, right?
I don't know. I mean, you keep wanting to set up this scenario so that it's more and more reliant on hypotheticals such that things are indistinguishable, and I don't know that that's actually the fact. But if I accept your hypothetical, yes.
Well, okay, so I'm gonna try and kind of ground up the idea that it's just a hypothetical here. I'm gonna try and
can you ground it up quickly?
Make it stronger, yeah. Okay, so our world is already, you know that our world is already a quantum computer, naturally at least, right?
No.
It's in quantum information theory. It's basically they're able to reduce quantum theory to something called quantum information theory, and it functions as a quantum computer. So now whether or not we're in a simulation, that would at least entail that we could replicate, because it's already computable, right? You can if it's computable, it means you can replicate the exact environment via computation.
I don't know that that's actually true.
It is. I have a background in physics.
Wow. Hey, hang on. I've got a quantum physicist in the back of the room. Mark, is that true? He doesn't know either.
That's Lloyd and it's from Bix.
He doesn't know either. So I mean, but we'll just keep saying yes to your hypothetical until you get to the point.
Okay. So the idea is that there's actually. I'm going to kind of expand on this a little bit here.
I hope you expand quickly.
Okay. Sorry. I'm a little bit nervous on the phone here. I'm going off and call in. So.
Well, I'm actually looking for an actual argument. I'm not all that keen on sci-fi, hypotheticals, whether or not they may actually be true. I'm looking for somebody to actually construct an argument.
Okay, so here we go. So we have the simulation hypothesis, and based on Boston's formula, it's very highly likely. There's extremely highly probable chance that we're in a simulation rather than not, simply because there will be so many more simulations than real worlds, and the chances of us just happening to be in the real one are very tiny, right?
Keep going.
Okay, so now we're going to expand on this a little bit, and this already sounds like science fiction, right? I mean, I get that, but I'm going to expand on this a little bit, and I'm going to ask how many. Let's say we have the first quantum computer develops in 2040, and it runs 4 or 5 simulations. Then 10 years down the road, quantum computers are available to the public, and now they release Sims Universe, and all of a sudden there are 10 million simulations, right?
Okay.
We just keep extrapolating farther out to you've heard of Kurzweil's evolution thing, where it goes out and eventually you can build Matryoshka brains and so on and so forth.
Yep.
The point now, this is kind of a counterintuitive conclusion here, though, is that since as technology expands, the number of simulations will also expand because the civilization is increasing. More people are able to develop simulations.
You're losing me.
Okay, so the argument is that the most likely point at which we are being simulated is actually not in the near future, but the rather distant future, right?
Sure.
Okay, you've heard of Frank Tipler?
The name sounds familiar.
He's a physicist. Now this is.
Are we getting to anything approaching a God argument in the near future?
Yeah. Well, basically the idea is that we're being.
The show's only an hour long.
Omega point, which has all the properties of the deity.
Okay.
Just because it's so you tap into the spin foam behind space-time, and you can use all of space-time for quantum computing, and you have this one giant AI running the whole thing from the future, basically. And it's running all these trillions of simulations, but it has all the properties that you would think of as having a God.
Okay.
And so that's the idea, is that scenario is highly more likely than the situation that it is not true. And therefore, it is highly likely that a God or godlike being exists rather than not.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No.
Yes and no. I don't really care about modal logic arguments. I don't really care if you can say that something is possible or probable or putting together these pieces. What I want to know is there any actual evidence? By the way, you better let me finish after me letting you ramble so long. In all those scenarios, wouldn't you agree that there has to be one first civilization that isn't a simulation?
That is correct. I thought you were going to ask that.
So
I have
can you prove that we're not that civilization?
All right.
Yes or no?
Here. Prove that we're not that one? All right, here we go.
Can you?
So that's future point. This take a little bit to set this up, okay?
No.
Future point, because I thought you were going to ask this question. So with this future point, this hypothetical civilization in the future, right?
You've got 2 minutes tops. Go ahead.
All right. So what's going on here is that once it's able to encompass all space-time and quantum computing, it's now defined by the wave function of the universe, which is actually, according to the Wheeler-DeWitt equation, is time independent, meaning it's essentially outside of time, and therefore exists for all time.
How can something exist outside of time?
It's simple. The way it's already
simple?
mathematically defined to.
No, you just said it's simple for something to exist outside of time, and I don't agree that that's simple. I don't even see how that's
mathematically.
Boy, would you let me finish?
Okay.
I don't even see how that's a coherent sentence, Because existence is a temporal condition. You're using an existence to mean something that it can't.
Well, okay, define existence then. Because I'm thinking in terms of the math here. It's just defined by the mathematics as being...
Yeah, and I don't care. I think you can do all kinds of really nifty little things with mathematics that seem really interesting and actually lead places. And you can also do some things that are productive in the real world. But I don't want to sit around and do this kind of masturbatory fantasy stuff with mathematics. When you start talking about something, I don't care.
Okay.
When you say something can exist outside of time, that doesn't make any sense, and you need to define what you actually mean. And if all you're going to do is just keep citing physicists or quantum mechanics over and over again, we're not getting anywhere near any sort of understanding or agreement. And I don't know how any of that demonstrates that a God exists.
Okay, well, I was just giving you the demonstration that there's the quantum computer. Once this omega point computer begins to exist, it has to always exist for all of time, simply because it's time independent. So basically what they did is they had this wave function of the universe equation, and there's this Wheeler and DeWitt were trying to put this together, John Wheeler and Bryce DeWitt.
What's the point?
And when they did the math, the time dependency part of the equation fell out.
I tell you what, hey, Johanna, you've gone way over your 2 minutes. When you get your Nobel Prize or your Templeton Prize for this, call back.
Okay, that's Frank Kepler's argument, so.
Thanks.
Bye.
Sorry. For those of you whose eyes were glazing over.
That was me.
Yeah.
That was one of those.
I tried.